So my cousin Julia, who's 27, started dating my ex-boyfriend Louis, who's 29 a couple of years back. I also 27 had been with Louis for 3 years. We got together right after he finished school and I was in my sophomore year of college. We were together for 3 years and called it quits a few weeks after I turned 20. Honestly, it wasn't a good relationship, and I wish it hadn't been my first adult one. On paper, we looked perfect, but in reality, it was totally different. He was super insecure and controlling and wouldn't let me do anything on my own, like hanging out with my friends at bars or even talking to my guy friends. He was always keeping tabs on me, and if I didn't do what he wanted, he'd start messing with my head, making me think I was the problem, and that's why things weren't working out. I was pretty desperate to keep him around, so I'd bend over backwards for him, but even that wasn't enough to make him stay. He was the one who dumped me, saying things weren't working out, and then blocked me so I couldn't reach him. I tried really hard to get in touch with him, but after the breakup, he was completely gone, and within 2 months, I heard from people that he had already moved on to his next girlfriend. So that was a huge waste of my time, and I really don't like that guy. We didn't talk for a while after the breakup, but then, when I turned 25, he finally unblocked me and reached out to wish me a happy birthday. I didn't reply, and I thought it was weird that he was texting me because by then, I had also moved on and was with someone else. But he kept texting me, even though he didn't get a response. So in the end, I had to block him, and then we didn't talk for a couple of months again. But just a few months after my birthday, Julia invited me over to her place, and when I got there, she told me she wanted to introduce me to someone, and it turned out to be Louis. Apparently, the reason he had been texting me earlier on my birthday was because he wanted to make things right with me before this happened. The two of them had met through work and had started dating and were pretty serious about each other. Julia and I have been really close since we were kids, so this was a total shock to me because she knew that he and I really didn't get along and he was pretty toxic to me. So I was totally thrown off when I realized that the two of them were together, and she told me that she knew I would be uncomfortable. But she wanted me to give it one chance, and I really wanted to do that, but it was just too much for me. I wanted to be happy for Julia, but Louis was someone who had caused me a lot of pain in the past, and it was my first serious relationship because in middle school and high school, I didn't have anybody except crushes. And he had ruined that for me, so I had a major grudge against him and the way that he had treated me in the past. I tried to be as respectful as possible about it, and I told Julia that while I really wanted her to be happy, I couldn't process the fact that she was with Louis now, and I didn't think that I wanted to be a part of her life anymore. She was really upset about it and tried to talk to me several times after that, but I couldn't accept it. Because she, of all people, had known exactly how toxic he had been to me and how traumatized I had been because of him. But she still went on to date him, and she kept telling me that he had changed and was a better person now, but I didn't buy it. She was free to have him in her life and be with him. I didn't have a problem with that. But also, I had the right to cut him out of my life, her too, by association. It was pretty straightforward for me, but obviously it was tough too since Julia and I were really tight, being both cousins and good friends. But then, there's something I just had to do for myself, and I went through with it. After she told me she had started dating Louis, I barely spoke to her anymore, and for the past 2 years, we've been pretty cold to each other because once she saw I wasn't going to talk to her, she started keeping her distance from me too, and I don't blame her for that. We'd run into each other at family events and stuff, and we'd just ignore each other, whereas before, we were the cousins who always stuck together and gossiped about everyone else. But now, things had changed, and honestly, I was cool with that. Everyone's got their own life and the freedom to do what they want, so I didn't have an issue with her. I just didn't feel like talking to her, that was my deal, but I guess she took it personally and wanted to get back at me or something. So she decided to start badmouthing me to other family members and mess up my reputation, which I thought was totally unnecessary. Because I would never do that to her, I never had, even though we weren't getting along. For the past year, she's been telling everyone that I was the reason behind my breakup with Louis, and apparently I had no morals or ethics. She and Louis have been spreading rumors about me, saying that I would flirt with other guys while I was with Louis, right in front of him. And that was supposedly the real reason he'd end up getting possessive and controlling. They made it sound like I was the one flirting, and that's why he'd get insecure when it couldn't have been further from the truth. It was actually the other way around. He was the one who would be way too friendly with other women and expect me to be cool with it. But he'd get upset when I had guy friends even though I kept it totally platonic. And he would always manipulate and gaslight me into cutting everybody out of my life. I found their attempts to trash my reputation with my own family super offensive, but honestly, I was too caught up in my own life to care about what they were spreading, and it's not like anyone actually believed them, so I was good with it. And I didn't respond to that or react since I knew that would give them exactly what they wanted, a reaction from me. I also knew that if I wanted to put an end to this, it would be super easy for me because all I had to do was talk to my auntie and she would handle it all. Even though I wasn't close with Julia anymore, I was still pretty tight with her mom, and the woman is a federal court judge, so I knew she would do the right thing. She's my dad's older sister, and everyone knows she's got a backbone of steel. She would never do anything shady or wrong, so I don't know how Julia turned out the way she did, despite being her daughter. Literally, one conversation with her would put an end to all of this. But as a result, I knew that Julia would also have to deal with a lot because she was pretty financially dependent on her mom since she recently started her own jewelry line, but it wasn't doing too well from what I heard. Anyway, I didn't want to bother her with such petty stuff, and I knew I was strong enough to handle it on my own. So I didn't bring it up with her, and also, I wanted to let this keep going and see what kind of crazy rumors they would come up with because either way, my other cousins were still coming up to me and telling me what she had been saying behind my back. So it was just funny and a way to kill time for me. Then 6 months ago, they got engaged and announced the wedding dates pretty soon after. My parents got an invite, but I didn't and I was cool with it. I didn't think I'd be invited to the wedding anyway. I wouldn't have wanted to go even if they had invited me, after all the mess that went down with me and Julia, not to mention me and Louis. The wedding happened 3 days ago and it was just another day for me, so I wasn't too worried about what was going on over there. But after a while, my phone started blowing up with texts from everyone in the family. Everyone was going on and on about some speech that Louis and Julia had given at the wedding, and I was totally confused. But then my parents called me and said they needed to talk to me. So they were the ones who finally spilled the beans about what had gone down, and I totally lost it at that point. Apparently, they used the wedding as a chance to give a nasty speech about me and spread as many bad things about me as they could all at once. They wanted to turn everyone in the family against me, and I guess they might have pulled it off if I hadn't had anything up my sleeve against them. Julia and Louis were smart enough not to mention me by name, but kept talking about a certain ex-girlfriend who wasn't at the wedding, which could only be about me because who else would it be? Anyway, they repeated all the rumors they'd already tried to spread about me like I was the flirt. And apparently I was a gold digger too, and I would rely on Louis for money and expect him to pay for everything, and he had to, since I insisted I was just a college student and couldn't be wasteful, so I would demand that he took care of me financially when we were together. That wasn't true either. I always made sure to split everything on our dates and never expected him to pay for anything, let alone demand it. The worst thing they said about me, hands down, was when they accused me of cheating on him, which supposedly ended the relationship, according to their stories. So at the wedding, they went ahead and said they were glad I was out of their lives and hadn't shown up to the wedding because they didn't want a negative influence like me anywhere near them. They even gave the family an ultimatum. From now on, they could either invite me to their events or them. If I was at any family event, they wouldn't be there. And after that, my phone started blowing up with people telling me about it, but I only found out from my parents, and I was seriously pissed, like I said before. So I thanked them for letting me know because my parents had walked out right after that speech. They couldn't stand that Julia was going to such lengths. They also told me my aunt was totally confused about what was going on and talked to them about whether what Julia was saying in her speech was true, since it seemed so unlike me, and she was spot on. I hadn't actually done that, and she was totally right to question her daughter's honesty. Anyway, after hearing what they had said about me in their wedding speech, I decided to go all out and dug up screenshots from the past to prove they were lying. I had to do a lot of digging, and it took me a while since I had to scroll for several minutes to get to the part I needed. Thankfully, after a really long time, I managed to find the screenshots of the chat between me and my ex that I had been looking for. These were from around the time we were getting back together, and he had been particularly toxic and vicious at that point. He said some really nasty stuff to me, like how he wished he'd never started dating me, and how he'd wasted 3 years of his life with me when he could have been with other people since a lot of women were interested in him during that time. But now, he was finally going to go out with other people. He never mentioned cheating, and I'm pretty sure if I had actually cheated on him, he wouldn't have let it go so easily. Anyway, I scrolled even further back up, and I found other chats of him being toxic towards me, and then I went ahead and posted it all online without an explanation or caption, because I think those chats would speak for themselves. And so they did, because after I posted the screenshots, he started texting me once again and commenting on the post saying that they knew that whatever had been said was not true because it just seemed really weird for me to act that way, since everyone had known me for ages, since I was a child, and I was not the kind of person who would do such things. Those screenshots just went on to show that they were lying, and knowing that my family was on my side and not theirs, that was all that I needed. In fact, several people even contacted me to tell me that they had left the wedding, just because of the things that had been said about me. So while Julia and Louis had been hopping that they would be able to turn people against me, their speech had backfired horribly, and nobody was on their side anymore. Worst of all, not even my aunt was on their side anymore, which was really bad for them. They hit me up on the night of the wedding and were literally begging for my forgiveness. Apparently, after seeing the screenshots I posted online, my aunt had a talk with them and told them how disappointed she was that Julia had been so dishonest and was trying to mess up my reputation just because she couldn't handle the fact that I had cut her off since she was now with my ex-boyfriend. A bunch of the guests had already bilayed because of all the drama, and after talking to them, my aunt also told Julia that she was super upset and disappointed in her actions and had expected better, so until Julia apologized to me and I forgave her, my aunt was going to cut the two of them out of her life too. And then she left, even though Julia tried her hardest to stop her, since she really depended on her mom. Later that night, the two of them called me and started apologizing like crazy because they knew they couldn't get by without my aunt's support since she had been financially backing her daughter for a while now. Julia had actually been planning on closing down her business and taking a break for a bit, which meant she'd have to lean on her mom even more now. But since my aunt decided to cut her off, things weren't going to go as planned, and Julia was really freaking out about the future. That's why she reached out to me, wanting me to forgive her, take down that post, and talk to my aunt about everything. I was so upset about everything that went down that I refused to do that and blocked both of them. But since then, they've been trying so hard to get in touch with me and change my mind, and now I'm totally confused about what I should do. My aunt is a really stand-up woman, and we've talked. She reached out to me the day after the wedding to apologize for whatever Julia did, but I told her that I didn't want my issues with Julia to mess up our relationship. I mean, I hadn't let it happen before, and I'm not about to start now. So things are good between us, and I'm pretty sure if I talked to her, I could smooth things over for Julia, but honestly, I don't feel like I need to. She's a grown woman and should be able to handle her own mess. Sure, there are other consequences from her actions, but if I don't help her when I know I can, I'd feel like a total jerk. I'm just really torn about what to do here. So help me out. Is it wrong for me not to talk to my aunt and try to get her to forgive my cousin after she trashed me in her wedding speech with my ex-boyfriend? Update 1. Hey, so first off, thanks a ton for all the comments and support. Before I dive into the update, I want to clear something up. My parents went to the wedding, just like a bunch of other family members, because they're from the older crowd in our family, and they didn't really know about the rumors going around about me. Louis and Julia were mostly spreading that stuff to our cousins and relatives around our age. They kept the older folks out of the loop. So my parents had no clue what was being said about me and decided to go to the wedding to show respect for my aunt, even though they kind of knew there was some tension between me and Julia after she started dating that guy. I didn't say anything to them or complain on purpose, just like I didn't say anything to my aunt, because I didn't want to drag them into such petty drama. I was above all that, but obviously Julia and Louis weren't. Anyway, my point is that my parents didn't know what was going on, so that's why they went to the wedding. There's no reason for anyone to question them or hate them. As soon as they and some of the other older folks found out the kind of trash talk going on about me at the wedding, they decided to bail, and they're not on speaking terms with Julia or Louis anymore, so it's all good. I hope that's clear now. Now moving on. It's been 1 week since the wedding, and I blocked Louis and Julia, both of them. So they can't reach me, but that hasn't stopped them from trying, since they keep making new social media accounts and sending me emails, even though I just keep blocking them. They're desperate, but I've made up my mind that I'm not getting myself involved in helping them out here. I've been keeping in touch with my aunt, and she's made it very clear to me that she's only going to start supporting her daughter again after I forgive her. But honestly, I don't think I need to forgive her because for a whole year, I kept my mouth shut, and I let them say whatever they wanted to about me because I wasn't taking them seriously. But they thought that it was a free pass for them to take things to the next level, and now they're going to have to deal with the consequences. There's also another thing that I honestly don't feel like she deserves support from her mom, since she's in her late 20s now, and I think by now, she should have a clue about what she wants to do with her life. I can't imagine anybody still relying on their parents for money at this stage in life. It's not even like she's not educated enough or isn't competent enough. She's just always been way too lazy to stick to a job. It was like that when we were in our early 20s and had just graduated, and I thought that she would grow out of it, but it's still the same way now. So in a way, I think I'm kind of doing her a favor because not getting any financial support from my aunt is going to probably teach her to be better at her job or whatever. Either way, I've made up my mind that I'm not going to help her out. I talked this over with my parents, just to shake off some of the guilt I'd been feeling, and they told me I was totally justified in whatever I was trying to do. It was up to me whether or not I wanted to forgive her. I didn't have to forgive her if I didn't feel like she deserved it, just because I was worried about what would happen to her down the road. Besides, Louis still has a decent job, and he can support the two of them if they really need to get by without any financial help from my aunt. The bottom line is, I talked to my parents, some of my friends, and even you guys here, and most people agree that I have no reason to feel guilty. So I feel much better now, to be honest. But I took that post down because I didn't think it needed to stay up much longer. Everybody in the family already knows what happened, and I don't want to keep that on my profile, since a lot of other people follow me, and it would be a pain to explain everything that went down to them. So it was just easier to take it down. Right now, I'm just trying to focus on myself and let go of all the anger and the guilt I'd been feeling for the past couple of days, so I've gotten back into meditating and trying to take my mind off of things and deal with everything in a Zen way. And I really hope that Julia and Louis also try to do better with their lives instead of basing it all around me and making me the reason they get up in the morning every day like they've been doing so far. I think that'll be better for all of us. Update 2, hey. So it's been a month since the wedding, and from what I know, Louis and Julia are back on their BS again. My aunt still isn't talking to them because I haven't forgiven them yet, and honestly, I don't even need to. I know their apology wasn't genuine. They only said sorry because they were after money from my aunt, not because they actually meant it. After a couple of days of trying to get me to forgive them and tell my aunt to start talking to them again, they gave up when I didn't respond. After that, they went right back to spreading rumors about me. And this time, they got really creative with it. Apparently, they've been telling everyone that I'm trying to mess up their relationship with my aunt on purpose because I want all the inheritance for myself. It's so ridiculous because my parents are pretty well off too. I mean, let's not even go there since I have a decent job and I'm doing just fine on my own. I don't even need to think about inheritance because, at the rate I'm going, with the grace of God, I won't need to rely on anybody for money. Maybe they do, which is why they're thinking like this. But anyway, they've been telling everyone this story every time they bump into someone from the family in public, which happens a lot since we all live in the same city and they live close to several of our relatives. People have been avoiding them like the plague, yet they still find a way to talk about me. It just doesn't make sense to me why they're so obsessed with me when I haven't done anything in the past month. All I do is ignore them, and yet they can't let go of whatever happened. Anyway, I got pretty annoyed by this last week, and I told my aunt about it. She told me that even if they do apologize now, there's no way she's going to get back in touch with her daughter. She even communicated that to Julia by blocking her again, and now the two of them are even more ticked off at me than they already were. I know that because they set up another fake email to send me a super angry message, since that's the only way they can reach me now. They told me they were going to make me pay for all of this, like who even says that? I know they're acting totally unhinged right now, and it's not like I'm really scared, but it can be pretty annoying. So I shot back an email saying if they tried anything funny with me, I'd call the cops and wouldn't even think twice about sending them to jail, so they'd better watch out. I'm hoping that it scares them off, and if not, well, I've got a solid security system in place. Update 3, so 4 days ago, I got an email from Louis and Julia saying I'd have to face the consequences of what I did. I also warned them that if they tried to pull anything, I'd report them to the police, and yet that didn't stop them from doing the dumbest thing ever. Last night, they tried to break into my house. Julia has been to my place a bunch of times. She knows I've got a top-notch security system, so obviously, I was alerted the second they even tried to open my door. I don't even know why they thought my door would be unlocked in the middle of the night, at around 1 in the morning. As soon as that happened, I called the police and told them someone was trying to break into my house. I had a feeling it was going to be Julia and Louis, but just in case it wasn't, I didn't want to take any chances. So they showed up within 15 minutes, and unfortunately, for the two of them, they were even dressed like burglars and got caught, trying to make a run for it a little ways away from my house since they hadn't brought their car and had biked all the way here. The two of them tried to claim they knew me personally and weren't trying to steal anything. They just wanted to break in and talk to me, maybe scare me a little. I don't know why they thought admitting that would make them look any better to the cops. Julia started bawling her eyes out the second she got cuffed and begged me not to press charges, but I had zero sympathy left for her. You can't just keep messing up over and over and expect people to forgive you. Louis just stared at me with pure hatred, but that didn't bother me much. I was pretty used to it. Anyway, after that, I went back to bed because I had to work in the morning, and this morning I told my aunt and my parents what went down. They already knew because Julia used her phone call to reach out to my aunt to bail her out, but my aunt wouldn't even go see her, so now no one has a clue what's going to happen. I'm definitely pressing charges against them because I want a protective order. They're clearly off their rocker, and I want nothing to do with them anymore.